Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. We're going to talk today about cover letters and resumes. We're going to get into AI tools, how you can use those to make your cover letter and resume creation more simple, less stressful, faster. And I'm going to go over some best practices for cover letters and resumes. This is part of our series. Let me share my slides here. In the last session, we went over just requesting access to share. In the last session, we went over kind of your job search strategy and how you should think about approaching your job search, what steps you should take and what order you should take them in. And so if you haven't seen that, I hope you can go back and watch that and avoid some of the common mistakes people make. But my hope is that you build your cover letter and your resume, and you can tailor that for the different jobs you apply to. You submit high quality applications, and you can win interviews that help you find the right job for you and move you forward. So this is session 2 of 3 here. In the next session, we will talk about how to win interviews, the questions you can expect, how to prepare for them, and then how to negotiate your offers when you get them, which is the fun part, the most fun. So a quick timeline of the job search process. We talked about what you do in kind of the first couple weeks with strategy. Then you want to build your resume, your cover letters, get your LinkedIn ready as well. We talked about LinkedIn last time. And then you go into the application process. So it takes a few weeks, but it's shorter if we follow the right timeline. And just a quick set of facts to anchor us here. Average for a company to hire an employee is 44 days. So a lot of times it takes a little while for that process of evaluating resumes, looking at cover letters, reaching out to people, interviewing. So if you don't hear back right away, don't take it personally. It just takes a little bit longer than it should. Average unemployment lasts about 5 months. Plan on your job search taking a little bit longer than you want it to. And remember that just because it takes a little longer than you want it to doesn't mean that you're not going to get a job. That's just how the process goes. But if you follow the right process and you're more prepared, it will go faster. A lot of jobs are never posted online. That's why we talked about LinkedIn networking last time. And networking is, of course, very important. We talked about referrals in the last session, and about 5% of applicants earn a face-to-face interview. So I mentioned this because if you've applied to 20 companies and you haven't gotten an interview yet, that's actually not that uncommon. Again, don't take it personally. You might have to apply to more than that to win those interviews. But having the right cover letter and resume in combination with your networking is going to help you to get more interviews and better offers. So let's start off by talking about stories, because stories are the backbone of your whole application process, your job search process. These stories are going to go into your cover letter, they're going to go into your resumes, and they're going to go into your interviews and networking calls. So you want to have the stories that you're going to tell pre-thought out, pre-planned, and be kind of consistent through all of these different channels and touch points of the hiring process. There are stories that we want people to see. These are some of my stories. They are kind of the top part of the iceberg. These are the things that I'm more likely to talk about when I'm on an informational call or in an interview. And then you also have some of the things that you might not want to share. And I say this because some people really overshare, and we need to be careful about that. There is a time to be kind of, more honest and talk about your failures or something. But be careful about the stories that you're telling, and make sure that they're relevant and they tell the points that you want to make and be remembered for. I remember one veteran at Deloitte who kind of told this dramatic story about why he left the Army, and it didn't sit right with the interviewers. So just be careful about those negative stories. Our goal with stories, we want to be memorable. We want them to remember us specifically. We want them to be compelling, meaning that they show that we are exceptional at what we do. We have exceptional skill sets, and we achieve what we need to, and that they're relevant, of course. If you talk about a great story in something unrelated, they might be impressed, but that may not help you get the job that you're applying for. So they really need to be relevant. And we want to build trust and rapport. These recruiters and these interviewers are looking for certainty that you are the right person for them to hire. And so our goal should be to build that trust and, of course, rapport. You want to be likable throughout the interview process. And your resume and cover letter can help with that as well. And prove that you can and will, both that you can, meaning you've done it before in the past, and that you will do it again because of who you are. So when we're telling our stories, I want to talk about two different frameworks we can use. This is the easiest one, issue to impact. And this helps us tell a more complete story. This is important because sometimes people start off telling a story and they jump around. It's not linear and it's confusing for the person listening. So issue to impact simply means that you start off with what was happening, what was the situation or the context of the problem in the company, and then you talk about what you did. It's pretty simple. Issue, what was going on, impact, what did you do? And we want to be careful when we talk about what you did because some people are sensitive to hearing I a lot. And some people don't want to hear we all the time either. So you need to use both we and I. This is what we were going through. This is what we did as a team. This is what I did to help the team. Make sure that you're touching on both the group aspect and you as an individual so they know exactly what you did. So balance those we and I statements. The other framework or method to tell stories is called the STAR method. And this is a little bit more detailed. If you have time to plan out your stories, this can be great. But basically, it's an expanded version of issue to impact. The situation, what challenge were you facing or the opportunity you were facing? What task, what was your responsibility? What did you need to do about that situation? What actions did you take, specifically you? And what was the result? We have to talk about the result. And a problem that I see a lot of times on resumes is that people will say what they're responsible for, what their task was basically, or what they did, what their action was, but they don't talk about the result. And the result is the part that the interviewing team, the hiring team really cares about. They want to know what results you produced. So don't forget that situation, task, action, result. And if you can use this structure, it's going to help you tell better stories. That's going to make you more compelling and more memorable in a good way. All right, skipping through resumes. Go ahead. Was there a question? Okay, skipping ahead. This is the first resume. This was Leonardo da Vinci, and I think it was 1472, not to take you too far down history lane, memory lane, but basically on one piece of paper, he summarized what he had done in the past, why he could be really helpful for the person he was basically applying to work with, and what he would do for them. And I'll bring it up because the resume hasn't changed that much in 500 plus years. You want to be logical. You want to make sure it's relevant. You want to tell them what you can do for them, what you have been able to do and accomplish in the past. And I push for one-page resumes. This is a debate as old as time. Some people think that your resume should be 3, 4, 5 pages if you have that much to talk about. And that can be okay. If you're applying for a government job, they probably expect a longer resume. But some people love the one-page resume, and those people are very opinionated. And so while someone who likes longer resumes might not mind a shorter one, someone who really believes in a one-page resume will not be happy with a longer one. So I think it's a safer bet to have a shorter resume. And this is really where you want people to notice your best stories. And if you put everything in the kitchen sink onto your resume, then they might not see the things that you really want them to. So just a simple way of saying less is more. I'm not saying your resume has to be one page, but sometimes less is more. Yes, sir.
So I got one for you, and let me know if you're going to be covering this later. But the additional information section is somewhat controversial, where you'll put like down your hobbies, special interests, special accomplishments, things like that. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm going to share a couple of templates that have those types of things. I'm going to talk about some of the AI tools that get into hobbies. There are different opinions out there. There's no one right answer. You know, it kind of depends on the company, right? Like I worked with someone who was applying to work for a graphic design agency, and she wanted her resume to reflect that she was a really good graphic designer. And the idea of having a plain, boring resume did not sit well for that industry and that job function she was applying for. So it made sense for her to show what she could do in her resume more. For other people, I say keep it simple, and I'll show you the templates for that. I think hobbies is probably going too far, but if you were a swimmer in college or something, you could put that on there. I've got an additional information section I'll show you on my resume. I think it's good to show a little bit more outside of just your academic experience and your work experience. Um, Nothing wrong with going over one page, but some people are a little more picky about it. So I can't give you a black and white answer there, but I hope it helps, and I'll show you some examples. So here's one example. This is Elon Musk's resume from a while back. And while I kind of like the color scheme and everything, it can be a little bit distracting. And if you're a recruiter who looks at resumes all the time, you want to be able to find the information you're looking for very quickly. And that's why I'm going to show you the resume templates that I recommend, because a recruiter can scan those very quickly to see the dates they're looking for, to see where the companies are. And while this might, look good, you might even have an AI tool that gives you something like this. It can be a distraction that is more stressful for the recruiter and for maybe an AI system that's evaluating your resume than you want it to be. So you want your resume to be simple and easy to scan. And to that point, this is one of my old resume versions. Notice it's got this additional section down here at the bottom where I talk about some of my other certifications, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. And I'll change those for different companies, but very straightforward. I don't have a summary on here. Some people love having a summary section. Some people believe that you have to have a key skills section where you bullet point those. That can be great to have your buzzwords on the resume, but I look at the resume as a list of stories. And these are the stories that I want people to see and to be impressed by and to ask me about in an interview, because an interviewer will often use your resume to ask you questions during that interview. So very simple. And I'll show you the Harvard, recommended resume templates as well, but they follow this overly simple, kind of boring template. And that means that you have to do less work. You don't have to create a work of art. You should have some white space. I think there's a decent amount of white space on here. But you don't have to be fancy. Okay, don't worry about that. And feel free to interrupt if you got more questions. A couple of simple things I want to point out here. Green circle here, and the right side, these are just zoomed in on these. But the green circle here is a Gmail. Sometimes people will put their work email, maybe their military email or their school email on the resume. I don't recommend a school email because you may lose that after you graduate. It's better to use a Gmail. Companies don't want to email you at another company email, telling you to quit there and come work somewhere else. So use a personal email. Second, physical address. Companies do want to see a physical address. You could just put your city and state. You don't necessarily have to have your entire street address. But if you don't have a physical address, they may assume that you only want fully remote opportunities. The next one here, this quantitative analysis line gets really close to that bullet point. That's just the kind of thing that bugs a recruiter that looks at resumes all day, a little formatting thing. I know it's inconvenient that quantitative analysis is longer than the other terms, but to me, this is a miss formatting wise. Next one, we've got the short dash. Okay, there are M dashes, which are longer, and N dashes, which are shorter. You want to be consistent with those. And some people will have a space on either side. Some people won't. Just these little formatting things add up. And if a recruiter notices several of these kind of pet peeves, it can work against you. So go through your resume, look for this type of thing, have other people look at your resume, because they will probably catch things that you did not notice. And I think this last one is a change in font. It looks like the APPL is a different font size or font type than the rest. So I've seen this before where people have different fonts and it just makes it look weird. You want to look professional and polished. So check for all those things. Okay, one more set of examples here. This first one, recipient of Dean's List Academic Achievement Award. That's great, but for what? Tell me why you got that. Okay, it's academic achievement, but expand on it a little bit more. The next one here, there's a space before graduated. That sticks out in a negative way. Next one here, there's a space on the right side of this dash, but not on the left. I know it seems like I'm nitpicking, but this is important. And Word doc, you can turn off the spell check and the grammar check. You don't want things like this popping up here, underlining a potential mistake. And then the last one is an Oxford comma. It should be comma and here. So just make sure you're going through these carefully and you have someone else look at these, because little mistakes add up and they count against you. Some people use this core competencies section. I don't. If you want to bullet point stuff, that's great. It's not a problem. But having numbers is really good. 1 billion here. I don't think having an abbreviation like a B for billion is a negative thing. Some people are very formal and they won't abbreviate anything. But it's good to have numbers in there. You want to be quantitative to anchor you. The circle here and here, this is for over. It should actually be more than. And if you're dealing with people who've taken the GMAT a few times, I would recommend saying more than 10 years instead of over 10 years. Again, don't use your school email address up here, and have your physical address as well. Quick takeaways for resume. And we're going to jump into AI and talk about the tools in just a second here, but use a standard template. Don't get fancy. Look for these little grammar details. Start every line with action verbs. We'll talk more about that as well. And tell compelling stories that prove what you can do. Add that quantification, whatever you can. And my recommendation, fewer pages is better. You don't want to overwhelm people. All right, quick overview of cover letters, and then we're going to jump into the tools. Some cover letters get really long and complicated. They're overwhelming for people, and I see good candidates not apply for jobs because they don't want to take the time to write a cover letter, and that's unfortunate. Writing the cover letter is actually a good exercise for you to think about why you're applying, why you're a good fit, and will prepare you for the interview. And it doesn't have to take too long. So really, there should be 3 paragraphs. The first one says, hey, I really like your company, and I've talked to these people, or I've learned about this and that, and that's why I'm interested. Second paragraph, this is why I'm a good fit for this company and for this role. And then the third one is just a wrap up. Thank you for evaluating my application. I look forward to connecting with your team. Things like that. Does not have to be super convoluted. So a couple examples here of longer cover letters. Somebody put a lot of time and energy into these, and for that reason, they will probably not get read, because this is overwhelming for people looking at 200 candidates. So less is more. I like the overall template, but you don't need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. Not necessary. Quick thoughts on cover letters. Again, tell those compelling stories about why you're a great fit and what you've accomplished. Add some color, not actual color, but detail behind the scenes, explain your why a little bit, and tell more of a narrative than you can in the resume. And make sure you add those quantitative details. And again, less is more. All right. I'm going to stop sharing slides and jump over to kind of practical application here. Any questions before we move forward? I talked a lot. Okay. So let me pull up one of these tools here. And I'm going to jump through a few things. If you're looking for a resume template, you can go to Harvard, just search Harvard resume template, and you can pull this up. It's got some different versions here, and you can fill this out. Pretty simple. To your point, Alec, it's got skills and interests down here, kind of that catch-all, not hobbies. And if you are just finishing school, let's say you're about to graduate from grad school, put education at the top. If you have been on the job market for a while, you graduated 5 years ago, your experience section should be at the top. That's an important detail. And try to balance your bullet points. You don't want 10 bullet points on one job and then 2 on the other, that type of thing. On this template as well, you'll see the location on the right side, right justified, and then the year below it. This is what recruiters are typically looking for, dates and locations on the right side. And then you've got your company with the title underneath them and the bullet points below those. So very basic template here being recommended by Harvard and most other schools that I've looked at as well. Very similar. All right, next tool is ChatGPT. So I use ChatGPT for a lot of things, and you can really just have a conversation with an AI like ChatGPT. So if you don't know anything else, you can say, hey, can you help me write some bullet points for my resume? What I'd say, please ask me some questions to write a good prompt to create an amazing resume. So if you don't even know how to communicate with ChatGPT, you can ask it, hey, what should I ask you to do? And it will kind of ask you these questions. And then we would go through and we'd fill this out. What positions are you interested in? What industries do you want to work in? What type of role do you want to apply to with this resume? And just go through these and have a normal conversation with your computer to answer these questions. And then as you fill these out, it will give you a better response. The more information you put into your prompt, which is just the question you're asking it, the thing you're asking it to do, the better the output's going to be. And kind of without all this, let me just give it something simple. So basically, I want to be a management consultant at a top firm. I was in the Marine Corps before going to business school. And you might have to go back and forth a few times. I'm not going to go through and answer all these questions with you right now live, but it will ask these clarifying questions, and then you can take part of your resume. You can take the responses from this, and it will spit out the bullet points that you should use. And of course, you're going to want to massage that. Whatever ChatGPT gives you, look at it carefully. Don't just take it at surface value, because it might be incorrect. It could make something up. Let's say, I told it I was in the Marine Corps. It could make up dates, or accomplishments. So I'll just ask it for some examples. Could you give me some examples of what good resume bullet points would look like and why they're good? So it's totally guessing here, but the structure is really important here. Every bullet point should start with an action verb. And if you don't know what action verbs are, or you need some reminders, just type in action verbs for resume, all kinds of great tools out here. And you can go down the list and find different words here that you can use. So try not to use passive terms, try not to use boring words, try not to use led every time you start a sentence. Okay. You can change that to orchestrated or spearheaded or initiated, coordinated, developed. these words are going to stand out more and not look too repetitive. So you're going to start with an action verb, and then you're going to explain what you did and what the result was. Led a team of 25 Marines in high pressure environments, ensuring operational readiness and mission success through strategic planning and decisive leadership. I think this is good, but I would say that there is a result missing here. I want to know that this person successfully completed 200 missions or something. There's got to be that result. The next one, designed and implemented a logistics optimization plan that reduced supply chain inefficiencies by 30%, improving unit readiness and resource utilization. This is a lot easier for a hiring manager to sink their teeth into. They created a 30% supply chain inefficiency improvement, or reduced inefficiency by 30%. And that makes them think, man, what would it look like if we reduced our inefficiency by 30%? That'll save us $10 million. Okay. That's very concrete. Trained over 100 personnel in leadership, risk assessment, and decision-making, fostering a culture of accountability and operational excellence. I love the fact that this has both kind of this quantitative number, 100 people, right? They may say, wow, I'm only hiring this person to lead 10 people. They've got a lot of leadership experience. And then there's this culture qualitative piece as well. So it's got both quantitative and qualitative here. Although I don't see the result again, and the result can be really tricky. That's probably the hardest part. What was the outcome? We fostered a culture of accountability. Okay, you could say that's a result, but did that lead to improving, turnover numbers? Did it reduce turnover? Did it improve employee customer satisfaction scores, employee satisfaction or customer satisfaction? Like, try to tie it back to something more concrete than just improving the culture. But talking about qualitative things is okay too. In more of a business setting, led a $50 million cost reduction initiative for a Fortune 500 medical technology company, streamlining operations and improving EBITDA by 15%. That's the kind of thing that is going to be really memorable. They're going to talk about everyone they interviewed at the end of the day or the end of the week, and they'll say, hey, this one guy did exactly what we need someone to do. He improved EBITDA by 15%. So things like that will stick with people. Advised private equity-backed healthcare firms on post-merger integrations, aligning strategy and operations to accelerate synergies and increase revenue by 20%. Again, very quantitative and a very good specific result. And it looks like the next one is the same as well. So action verb, developed, advised, led, selected, I think is maybe not the best. Built, and these should all be past tense, right? Unless you're still there presently. But I see people make the mistake of using present tense and then switching to past tense back and forth. That's kind of a pet peeve for people. So designed, trained, quantitative aspect, and the result. If you can do that, you're going to have some really good bullet points and some good stories to talk about in your interview as well. Questions on ChatGPT so far? Okay, so you can go through. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to throw a big +1 in on those quantitative numbers, like the increasing EBITDA by 15%. For for vets, like we looked at a lot of vet resumes, specifically for business school, and then when I was working at my consulting firm, and civilians don't understand military resumes, and you might have done the greatest stuff in the world. Like, we'd see people say like received Navy Commendation Medal, but people don't know what that means, right? But saying like, improved operational efficiency by 20%, like those kind of key metrics, were selected over 12 peers for position of responsibility, like putting those hard numbers in your resume is so important. And then when you will say things like, well, we've seen things people say like led 20 personnel. Okay, that sounds impressive, but were you a good leader? What did your unit accomplish? you've got to put that kind of hard quantitative numbers like, achieved, improved results over previous, over previous year by 20% or something like that. So yeah, big +1 on the percentages.
Yeah, thank you. And just one sec, Jared. We also can estimate. It's okay to estimate. Sometimes we don't have perfect numbers to put on our resume. I'm not saying that you should exaggerate at all. You want to be very honest about these numbers, but I think there is a time when you say approximately 10% or approximately 15% because you don't have the exact number. I was a Marine of the Quarter once. I put ranked #1 out of 5,000 Marines in my unit. Um, Selected as Marine of the Quarter. Look for those ways that you can put quantitative anchors into your resume. Did you have a question, Jared? I don't know if someone needs to call on him.
Sorry, I'm the host. So let's see. I think you're co-host. Let's see how we do this. Sorry, I'm not a Zoom expert
Jared, if
here.
it'll let you come off mute, please feel free to.
Oh yeah, that's how I got to do it. There we go. So
Participants.
Jared, all right. You're now allowed to talk.
Uh, Hello. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Yeah.
No, I actually, I do have a question. So as far as like the numbers go, so I hear that the qualitative is like important, but you kind of hit on it a little bit towards that end part when you were talking. But how would you recommend we backfill those numbers that we don't have those numbers anymore of like previous jobs or things we did in the military? Like, how do you say I improve efficiency by 30%? Like, what does that mean? Like, how would I measure efficiency, or how would I measure these like random numbers? Because in my resume, I don't have any numbers, but I also don't like. I guess I'm looking to see how I can backfill or like come up with numbers here.
Yeah, good question. What's your background?
IT, Navy IT.
Okay. So you could put number of tickets that you solved in a day or a week. Um, I really think it's okay to estimate. You should always be honest about estimating and say approximately, but
Mm-hmm.
if you reduced spending, if you got back to people faster, if you solved issues 20% faster than IT issues had been resolved in the past, or you solved IT issues to the point where tickets were reduced by 15%. A lot of different ways that you can look at that. It doesn't have to just be a dollar amount. Does that help?
Got you. Yeah. So yeah, kind of. It's just like I guess I kind of have to like go dig in some of my like previous evaluations. But yeah, like I just come up with some numbers, and yet like not actual money, doesn't have to be money, but I guess some way to make what I did tangible, right, in numbers is what we're looking for here.
Yeah, and it could be, the number of systems too. Like you provided technology support for 17 different collaboration tools. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough. That makes sense. Oh, okay,
Now
okay,
that's
okay.
that's less results focused, but it's still a qualitative anchor that you didn't just work on one tool. You've worked with multiple tools, you've worked with integrations, and so the
Oh, so
result.
as far as would you recommend like kind of making multiple bullet points for like the same thing, or because like if I want to do the results and the qualitative and like all the things I did, it sounds like it would be almost like a run-on sentence for one bullet point. Like, is there such a thing as too long of a bullet point? Is it better to be concise on these bullet points? Like, what would you recommend?
You can definitely be too long. I try to stay under 2 lines. In fact, if I go back to my resume, most of them are one line. I'm a little bit ADD about uniformity on
Mm-hmm.
resumes because some people are very visual. And I think a 3 or 4 line bullet point starts taking away from other things that you could tell and use with that space. You should be able to tell a good story in 2 lines.
Okay.
And you're not going to be able to tell everything, and that's okay. So the question is, what is most important based on what they're looking for. And you might read the description and they say they're looking for someone that can, manage IT for half a dozen integrated systems. And you should talk more about that. Or if it talks about, managing a large volume of tickets, you should focus more on that aspect. You could have multiple bullet points, of course. One could talk about ticket volume, one could talk about the number of systems, but try to avoid a run-on bullet point.
Okay. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Yeah, you definitely hit what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a lot of thinking to really go back and remember what happened and what you did. I'd say like write down everything that you accomplished, everything that you did, and then try and identify what the best metric is for each of those. And ideally, you've got at least one bullet point on your resume that highlights how you were ranked. Compared to your peers, you were ranked highly against your peers, or you were the salesman of the month, or whatever it was. You were the top recruiter for your district. And then something that talks about financial savings is always good. How did you save money or make money? Maybe difficult in a military, context for some people, but just thinking about those different types of metrics, your ranking, financial metrics, and the number of people you led, these different ways to incorporate numbers into your resume. Some people look at a resume and all they care about are the numbers. Some people are so, I guess, left-brained, right? Very quantitative. They just scan a resume and they look for the numbers. And if you don't have numbers throughout, then you're going to be out of luck.
I hear you. Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it so far. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Alec, any other questions?
I don't see, let me take a quick look. I don't think I see any. No, I think we're good on questions.
Okay. So let's talk about the cover letter now. And I'm not going to tell anything else. I'm just going to say, based on what we talked about so far, could you draft me a concise and compelling cover letter for me to apply for an area operations manager position at Amazon? So I've given ChatGPT like very little information, right? I said, can you help me with some resume stuff? I said, yeah, I was in the Marine Corps before going to business school. I want to go to a consulting firm. Now I've changed that. I asked for examples of bullet points. And then I said, okay, I want to go to Amazon. Can you write me a cover letter? And it gives me this whole template here. Maybe this is a little bit wordy, but it's not super long. But I think it's got my structure here. I'm excited to apply with the background as a Marine, extensive experience, driving operational efficiency. So this is why I'm a good fit, basically. And then here's a little bit more detail telling my story. Got some good search engine optimization words here, some buzzwords like data-driven, increasing EBITDA by 15%. I think it heard us talking about that and it incorporated. So put numbers into your cover letter too. That's great, of course. And then he talks about why Amazon is great, why I should say that I want to work for Amazon. And finally, wrap up saying, hey, love to talk to you. So basically the same format, a couple things switched around, but why I'm good for you, why Amazon's good for me, I'd love to talk to you. It doesn't have to be that hard. And then, if I put more information in here, it would be more accurate. It made up this data-driven stuff. But I could say, actually, I was a training officer and I worked with training hundreds of, you don't even have to spell stuff right, doesn't matter. ChatGPT will figure it out. And taught them organizational principles. I'm just totally making stuff up. And again, the more information that you give it, the more it's going to refine the output. Okay. So if you're beating your head against the wall, you don't want to apply for something because writing a cover letter seems like a huge headache, then just bounce ideas off of ChatGPT. That's my biggest advice for AI. Bounce ideas off. You don't have to have it polished yourself. You don't have to take exactly what it gives you and run with it, but you can basically brain dump whatever you kind of want to say without any sort of polish, see what it spits out. And then when you see what it gives you, you'll say, oh no, I need to change this, that, and this. And there you go. So I hope this is making cover letters a little bit less scary. It should be a pretty painless process. Actually, I love Amazon because they help so many people and deliver things incredibly fast. I want to work with emerging technologies too. And I worked in a complex warehouse environment with fast moving operations in the ring. Like this is not coding. This is not rocket science. For people that have not used ChatGPT before, it's going to take this brain dump and it's going to turn it into something, maybe 85 or 90% there. And then you go through and tweak. The one other thing that I'll add to this is that if you have spoken to people at Amazon or the company you're applying to, I would list them here, especially if it's a smaller company or a smaller team within a company. You want to say, hey, I talked to Joe, Brad, and Jessica. I'm really excited about what they told me and what's happening and where the company is going. And that's a big part of why I'm interested in applying. So it's okay to kind of name drop a little bit if you think the person that reads this might know them. And it just shows you that you're doing your homework too. Okay. That is what I want to say for ChatGPT. We'll move on to a couple of resume tools. We've still got time left, but take these bullet points, massage them, think about them, reflect on what results you really got, balance qualitative and quantitative, and aim for a line or two per story. These are little mini stories, and you want to make them intrigued enough to want to hear more. Oh man, like when they read this line about 15% EBITDA, I want that recruiter to say, I wonder how he did that. That's something our hiring manager would love to hear about. And then they'll ask you about this. And that's an easier question when they ask you about something you did right on your resume and you've got a story prepared, as opposed to tell me your biggest weakness or something that you could really get tripped up on. So that's ChatGPT. Good stuff. Let's talk about Teal. Teal is a resume builder tool, tealhq.com. And you can take a resume that you've already created or some rough notes and put it in here. I'm going to import a resume. And it'll give me a score and recommendations for what I can do better. So we'll use this sanitized resume I have for somebody. There was an error importing the resume. Here's the doc version. Sometimes PDF versions do not work super well. I don't know why it's not reading that. All right. Let me try one more time. The other option is to go kind of section by section through here, and you can just answer individual questions for like your professional summary. And of course, you can build your professional summary with ChatGPT as well. I don't put summaries in my resumes because space is tight on my one page, but nothing wrong with it. I would just say if you write a summary, keep it to about 4 lines. If you get to 6 or 7 lines, it's like a big paragraph on the resume, and it can be overwhelming for a reader. But one way to do this is just fill out each section of the resume, and then it will kind of put it all together for you. Or you should be able to drop a resume in, import a resume. Okay, I'll try that one on a different tool we're going to look at here. Let's use the Harvard recommended template and see what it says. Okay, it's having issues, but I like Tool Teal. However, sometimes it spits out very fancy resumes, kind of like the Elon Musk one that we looked at. And I think that that is not always the most helpful. So I'm gonna just do one of mine. My resumes are different because I'm an entrepreneur. So it's okay. So there's a problem with the system here. Sorry about that. But maybe you should try Teal, or maybe not. Resume Worded is another tool very similar. You drop the resume in. Here's the one I was trying to do a second ago, and it will give you a score. Okay, so this one for Jasmine Winters is kind of in this yellow zone, 72 out of 100. And all these tools have premium versions if you want to pay for more. Steps to increase your score. It's got repetition, use different action words and phrases. Okay, I think it's talking about these action verbs. I see exceeded. I think I saw exceeded again somewhere right here. Exceeded. Negotiated, maintained. Maintained is not a super exciting action verb. I would want to see results, improvement versus maintaining something. In charge of here, I don't like to see in charge of. It says this is what I was put in charge of, but if you can't tell me that you did anything to make that system or team better, then it's not a good look. So avoid just saying what you were in charge of. And then education at the end here. Weak action verbs. We talked about that. Inconsistent dates of ordering. Okay, so when we look at this, here it says 2008 to July 2013. 2 is spelled out. It's spelled out here. Up here, there's a dash. And here there's a dash. So I think that's what it's saying there. And then it will tell you what you did well. Good buzzwords. They'll have different tools to help you improve readability, although this one's got a 10, which is great. Growth signals, all this unlocked content. But this can be a really good tool to kind of give you feedback on your resume in general. So maybe you build a resume using the Harvard template and ChatGPT, and then you run it through Resume Worded to get a score and see what recommendations it might have for you. Okay, one more here is Kick Resume. When I put, I think this is from my LinkedIn account actually, they have a way for you to pull your PDF version of your LinkedIn account, upload it to Kick Resume, and then it creates a resume for you, which is kind of nice if you already have your LinkedIn profile filled out. However, it's got this fancier template with picture and skills and everything. I feel like there's too much white space here, and it's weird that it's pushed over so far to the right. There's like this big gap on the left. I don't like this brown. So, when you use a resume template tool, it might not give you the perfect result. Just because it's a professional tool does not mean that it is a perfect resume by any means. The skills section, I don't like how these are grouped together in weird ways. So just keep in mind that these tools are not perfect. They're getting better, but you might be better off using a good template like the Harvard template with ChatGPT to build your resume instead of hoping you drop everything into Kick Resume and it spits something perfect out. This has hobbies here. If I was applying for like a financial, investment banking job, I would not be talking about my photography. habit, my hobby. So be aware of the culture of the company that you're applying to in terms of how far you go into personal stuff here. But those are some of the biggest tools out there right now. Teal, Resume Worded, and Kick Resume. There are a bunch of others, but you can see that there are pros and cons to those. Again, it's like ChatGPT, where it's going to give you some ideas. It might point out some strengths or weaknesses, and then you take that back and work it. But don't take anything at face value. Don't put ChatGPT content into a resume without reviewing it really well first. These are all tools to help kind of guide you, but they're not going to do the work for you. So I'll pause there for a second. Thoughts on resume tools? And some of these tools do the same thing for cover letters as well. This is the Harvard site. Use those action verbs. Very important to start all of your bullet points with these action verbs and be consistent in that way. And if you do want to pull something from LinkedIn, I know we're running short on time here, but just go to your profile, click more here, and then save to PDF. And when you do that, it spits out this resume kind of looking thing. I would not apply to companies with this, but this is something you can upload for those resume AI tools. And it might give you a good start. So hope that was helpful. You know, bottom line for me is less is more when it comes to your cover letter and resumes. Tell compelling stories. Think about telling a complete story, issue to impact, or situation, task, action, and result. Make sure that you tell the result. Give quantifiable results whenever you can. And big picture, don't rely on your cover letter and resume to find you a job. These are tools to help you in the process, kind of like having a really nice suit. Having a nice suit is not going to get you the job. It might help you do better in the interview. It might make you look good, but it is not going to do the rest of the legwork for you. So use your cover letter and resume as tools, as part of the bigger picture, all the networking and everything else you're doing. But don't just blast your resume out to people and expect it to get you a job. All right. Last minute questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. If we don't have any questions, I think we're going to hand it over to Jacob to talk about GI Bill stuff for a second.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about VRNE? John, Alec, do you guys have any questions as well?
So I saw your post yesterday, which did fantastically well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Basically, you got extra GI Bill time. I think you had already used like 19 months of your GI Bill, and you got it reset, so you have a full 36 months left. That's post 9/11 GI Bill, correct?
Yes.
So can you explain to me how you were able to do that? Because that's really cool.
Sure. So have you already used VRNE or have you applied for it?
I've
Are
never
you
used
familiar with VRNE?
vaguely. Yeah.
So that's another program where if you have a disability rating of at least 10% on record with the VA, you can apply for it. Essentially, it is an occupation program where you would tell the VA that the career that you would like to do requires a certain amount of education. So if you were to say, I would like to become a lawyer, you would work backwards and say, I would have to go to a law school. You would show them which one you want to go to, show them your bachelor's degree program that you want to get into, associate's degree, all the way down. And they would pay for the tuition for all of those degrees, as well as the supplies and the equipment, and they also pay you BAH. If you used any of your GI Bill, as soon as you finish with your VRNE program, you can submit paperwork with the VRNE counselor, and it's called retroactive induction. It takes a few weeks, but your GI Bill will get reset to the full 36 months. And then they also pay you for an additional 2 months of BAH.
Wow. What about for somebody who's like already finished their GI Bill, they've maxed it out, Can that still get reset?
So it can still get reset, but if you don't have at least 1 day left on your GI Bill, then they pay you a different rate while you're on the VRNE program. It's called the
Interesting.
VRNE substance rate.
Any other requirements to get approved by VRNE that you know of, aside from kind of what you're pursuing and having a disability rating?
It also matters when you separated from the military. They have a whole eligibility section, which is broken down. If you were discharged before 2013 versus after 2013. So that can play into it because they were talking about I believe it was 12 or 14 years for the GI Bill for whenever it expired. So I just saw a message in the chat. Jared,
Yeah,
so yes, you apply through the VA. You might be able to use the VSO as well.
I'm going to drop a link how to apply for veteran readiness and employment. So I thought it was vocational rehab. Is that different than VRNE, veteran readiness and employment?
So they changed the name.
Okay.
They kept the letters the same and they just changed it from one to the other.
That's why veterans are always confused.
Somebody was trying to talk to me in the LinkedIn post saying, "Oh, you have it wrong. It's actually called Veterans Readiness." And I'm like, dude, it's the same exact thing. It's just a different name.
Very cool. So yeah, somebody could get several months or years of extra educational benefits to pursue the career that they're really interested in. That's pretty amazing.
No, it is definitely life-changing. A very important part of it is the VA will say that it is an occupation program and not an education program. So if somebody already has multiple degrees and they're doing very well in their career field, they can still get approved to go on VRNE, but you most likely would have to tell them that you are changing industries because of one of your VA disabilities that are on record. Essentially, you would say that the job that you want to go into will either help out with one of your VA disabilities that are connected to you, or at the very least, it won't aggravate one of your claims.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything else that we should know about voc rehab / veteran readiness and employment, benefits extension?
If you do go through with it and you want to apply to it, I would just have a career title in mind, just so you don't go to the Veterans Affairs counselors and say, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to get 3 or 4 years of extra education. They want to see that you're serious and that you actually have a specific job title in mind.
Excellent. That's really helpful. Someone also asked what free tools are out there for resumes. Started to jump around. ChatGPT definitely has, the paid version. Free AI tools. Canva has a resume builder as well. We didn't look at that, but I believe you can go into Canva and work on a resume there. Google has their built-in AI assistant now that is actually pretty helpful sometimes. And then we looked at kickresume.com and tealhq.com, which wasn't working for them. Not a good look. But lots of different tools out there. And I'll drop my email as well if anybody wants to reach out to me. It's not letting me right now, but I'm sure we're gonna share this training. And appreciate the questions, and I hope that there we go. Adding my email now. Happy to help anyone I can. Reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Jon Cobb, no H in John. And good luck with your job search. Anything else you wanted to add, Jacob, about VRNE?
No, I'll probably just stick on for the next 2 or 3 minutes just to see if anybody types something up in the chat.
Excellent. I will hang out too.
I will as well.
I like your shirt. Where do I get one of those shirts?
Service school, we'll send you one. We got a swag dump. You can Jacob is the keeper of all the swag, so we've got some extras laying around. So if you shoot him your address, we'll send you one. We'll send you a nice little swag bag.
Very cool. It'll be perfect for like St. Patty's Day coming up.
Yeah, get a nice water bottle too.
Yeah. But yeah, I did. I've done the GI Bill and VRNE. VRNE is it's a beast to get through, but it's definitely worth it if you can make it work for yourself.
What's the other one?
The GI Bill, just like the standard.
Oh, Gyro. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess I
big
should have
difference-
mentioned the high cost part. Oh, sorry, Alec.
Oh no, so I was just gonna say that the difference is that the GI Bill covers the cost of a state school, and then private colleges will have the yellow ribbon. Oftentimes the yellow ribbon will leave like a little bit of a gap in funding, whereas VRNE will cover the entire cost of your education. So there's a delta there.
That's huge,
Yeah.
especially if
also-
you're applying to like a top school.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, for me, I'm really familiar with the MBA program. So at Wharton, the gap was 10K a year between the yellow ribbon and so I had 100% GI Bill benefit. So it was a 10K gap every year, but Voc Rehab covered the 10K gap, which is not bad.
Yeah, Yellow Ribbon covered most of my gap. I paid a little bit out of pocket, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
So if you were to get onto VRNE, you can actually submit the receipts from the times that you had to pay out of pocket to your counselor, and they can reimburse you. I didn't know that you had to pay for anything out of pocket.
That's good to know because after going to 9 different programs, I got to go to most of them, without paying out of pocket, but I eventually racked up my own student loans. So going to school with kids. So it's really good to know.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then yeah, for grad school, like, the other big thing is for grad school, for a lot of the crew, if you use up a lot of your GI Bill now in undergrad, if you or then vice versa, if you use VRNE for your undergrad, I'd actually say probably VRNE would be better for your undergrad, because it's more showing that you need the skills, and then if you can keep your GI Bill for grad school, that'd be pretty huge. So you can basically get 2 degrees for free, which is not a bad deal.
That's very cool. I've heard that the individual Voc Rehab or VRNE counselor you work with can kind of make a big difference too, like which office you're working with.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So you have to apply for VRNE at the VA where your school or where you're based. So like you can't like people have always asked like, oh, like can I apply for VRNE while I'm like waiting to separate? It's like no, you got to get to school, you got to check in you got to basically set yourself up at your local VA hospital. So you register there. Then you have to get an evaluation where you've got a primary care provider. There's a sheet you got to provide from your Voc Rehab or VRNE counselor. So it's a very kind of long and drawn out process, and it all has to be done in one place. It takes like 3 or 4 months. So don't bank that you're going to get it, but definitely try for it. So kind of like my advice, I'll just go to school expecting the GI Bill, budget using the GI Bill, and if you get VRNE, it's a nice plus.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right. Well, let's see here. I think we're good to go, John. This is really helpful. So I'm gonna actually, I didn't know about a lot of these tools, so I'm gonna be going through them myself. I'm gonna actually see. I'm curious to see what I've always been pretty proud of my resume. So we're gonna see what the actual grade on it is.
Me too. So I think the first time I used Teal, it gave me like a 97% or something.
Yeah.
And next time I used it, it gave me like a 52.
Oh, really?
I don't know what I changed, but my resume is, I guess, different. Like as an entrepreneur, you don't really need a resume.
Yeah.
Like who am I writing it to? But you got to take it all with a grain of salt. AI has come a long way, but it's not perfect yet, for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool. All right. This has been fantastic, John. We'll be seeing you again next month. And looking
Talk about
forward.
interviews.
What's up?
We'll talk about interviews and negotiating offers. I'll talk about why people should always negotiate and how I almost left like 50 grand on the table by not negotiating. So that'll be fun.
Wow. Good stuff. All right.
Right.
All right, everybody. Take
Awesome.
care. Good
Thank you.
seeing you all.
Bye.